If you watch football, you've heard members of older generations complain that today's game has gone soft. They'll tell you that tackles were more robust, players were tougher, and that football was better in their day. But did you know that they're actually right? Well, sort of, and only partly. Not the bit about it being better, but in a way they are right about it being, as they call it, soft. The important factor, though, is that these changes were made deliberately. Football intentionally got softer, and this is why. The football we know today has its origins in the boarding schools of Victorian England, where violence was fundamental. The game was not so much about winning or losing, but about creating strong, young gentlemen who were capable of taking physical pain as part of a doctrine known as muscular Christianity. The ideology was popular in British public schools at the time and aimed to create men who were deemed to be tough enough to sustain and perpetuate the British Empire. The football of the early days in schools like Rugby or Eton was similar to the mob games of the medieval age. Hacking at the shins was allowed, and some boys would even attach glass to their boots to gain an advantage. Knocking opponents' teeth out, breaking their legs, or even their collarbones were fair game as long as both sets of players shook hands at the end of the match. But eventually, people began to grow tired of a game where violence prevailed. In 1863, the Football Association created a new set of rules where there would be no hacking, tripping, or handling the ball. The committee's stated aim was to see the triumph of skill over force. And it is this battle that was at the heart of football culture for over a century. Skillful players existed, but force was viewed as an acceptable way to stop them. Pelé was venerated as the most skillful player of his era, but few looked twice as he was forced off through injury in the 1966 World Cup, after a series of tackles from the Bulgarian team that would have resulted in many red cards today, but did not even result in a caution on the day. Similarly, Andoni Goicoechea was not even shown a yellow card for a tackle on Diego Maradona that broke the Argentinian legend's ankle and left him sidelined for 3 months. The tackle was so bad that it earned Goicoechea the nickname the Butcher of Bilbao and spawned an intense rivalry between Athletic Club and Barcelona that eventually led to a mass brawl at the end of the 1984 Copa del Rey final. To say that force was entirely accepted wouldn't be quite right. Goicoechea was retroactively given a 6-match ban for his tackle on Maradona, and debates about protecting skillful players against forceful tackles did exist. But in terms of officiating on the pitch, the policy was generally to let the game flow. So yes, football was undoubtedly rougher back in the day, of course it was. But given the obvious trade-offs, when did the complaints of modern softness really begin? Well, the shift began in 1990, when during the build-up to the World Cup, referees were instructed by FIFA to clamp down on violent play. Any official who did not comply would be sent home from the tournament in Italy. The number of red cards shown was doubled in comparison to the 1986 World Cup, but FIFA were still not satisfied with the referees' performances. In the build-up to the 1994 World Cup, referees were given a series of physical and written tests and attended seminars on rule interpretation. Precise instructions were given on changes in emphasis and psychological approach. As then FIFA Vice President Sepp Blatter put it, FIFA tried, by changing the psychology of the referees, to take away the advantage from defenders and give it to the forwards. Skill was being favored over toughness. Key in the referee change was the punishment for tackles from behind, of the kind that had injured Pelé and Maradona in the past. Any type of tackle like this would result in an immediate red card. Many began to argue that the change in emphasis had led to an overcorrection as the number of red cards began to skyrocket over the next few World Cups. But eventually, the culture began to change. Forceful play became less common in the 2000s, although it certainly still existed. Blatter even went as far as to suggest that violent tackles should result in criminal convictions after Birmingham City's Martin Taylor was sent off for a challenge that broke the leg of Arsenal's Eduardo da Silva in 3 places. Today, of course, the presence of VAR at the elite level means that if a player does commit a violent act, they are unlikely to get away with it. Football is less rough than it used to be, but with professional athletes performing at previously unprecedented fitness levels, fewer contact injuries, active concussion protocols, and an arguably more compelling spectacle, it's worth the trade-off. and it concludes a 150-year battle between skill and force. So while your parents might tell you that football has gone soft now and that it was better in their day, it's always worth remembering that their parents probably told them the same thing.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and James Horncastle. With the latest transfer news and insight on every Premier League football story that matters, theathletic.com puts you inside football.